Missing Children in South Africa says there's been a year-on-year increase in the number of children going missing or being kidnapped. It comes as an Orange Farm residents, that is, launched a manhunt to find a man they believe was last seen with 2 slain children. Joining me now is UNICEF South Africa's Chief of Social Policy and Child Protection, Meike Huybrecht. Meike, good evening and thank you so much for your time on News at Prime tonight. Firstly, as UNICEF, what are the trends that you have observed when it comes to child safety and in particular missing children in this country?
So, Kathy, thank you so much for having me on the program this evening. And the trends are very welcome, what we are noting. So, South Africa has always, for the last century, been a violent country. But what we observe is that 1 out of 3 children are affected by a form of violence and abuse before the age of 18. And that includes sexual abuse for girls and 1 out of 5 boys who are also affected by sexual abuse. So what we have learned during lockdown and the consequent further deprivation of children, as a result of loss of livelihoods, unemployment, we see more poverty and hunger. That now the forms of violence and abuse are also intensifying as the level of crime is going up.
Do you attribute the targeting of children solely on the increasing level of crime in the country, or are there other social factors that are driving this?
So it's a combination of different factors that are driving this. Children are being a target as now all kind of ways to, through kidnapping or crime, incomes are being generated as a result of these multiple deprivations that we are observing and higher levels of poverty and inequalities and unemployment. I don't think it's per se targeting children. It is also the crime has intensified as a result of the socioeconomic loss as a result of the 6-month lockdown.
When we look at the issue of human trafficking, and it's been causing quite a stir lately with different figures around the rate of human trafficking in and out of South Africa. When it comes to children, are those trends that you also watch?
Yeah, we are watching. So we are having a program with the Department of Social Development, with the International Organization for Migration and UNHCR, to really see what kind of streams that are happening. And in South Africa, we are hosting 600,000 children on the move that are coming from neighboring countries, but also from the Horn of Africa as a main recipient country and the last resort. And then kidnapping and trafficking has been on the move today. The Department of Social Development had a whole webinar around it in order to understand where this is coming from and how it can be overcome. And we do indeed see a spike in abductions that is occurring at the moment.
So this spike in abductions, do we have numbers in terms of what we're dealing with? Because on the one hand, you asked the South African Police Service about it. They say they haven't necessarily seen an increase in the reporting of child kidnapping or abductions. And so when you talk about this peak, do you have the data to back it up?
What we today have is data from we getting our data from DPV command centers and from police and Childline. So what we note more is actually current news report that we can base our analysis on, which is not yet evidence-based, as we don't have the most recent data on abductions officially.
So what are the things then that you would be watching as indicators of a potential increase in child abductions or even human trafficking?
So it's what is happening at the borders, the calls that are coming in, the different law enforcement authorities that are watching the different numbers, from police to borders to GBV command centers. So it's different sources that we are trying to track. But for us to really gauge the momentum and the magnitude of it, we really would need to do a solid study at the moment.
what are the interventions that need to be put in place with the absence of that concrete data?
So what is very important at this moment, and it has been important for a very long time, is to really strengthen families and for everybody in the nation. You know, Mandela used to say it takes a village to raise a child, but it's a whole nation that needs to safeguard children. So it is the families themselves that need to make sure that there's always an adult caregiver or a trusted mentor around this child, and that they know where the child is. You know, in the home with a trustworthy person, in the school, in the community, so everybody knows what they need to do to safeguard the child, which is your family, your neighborhood, your community, your faith-based organization, your school, your ECD center, your health center. Everybody now has to be watching and safeguarding and nurturing this child to create a protective environment at all levels, at all times.
What do we know about the lifespan of children who are abducted for the purposes of trafficking? What becomes of them?
Oh, it's a terrible journey. Often these children on go, because the moment that they get trafficked, they really, you know, come into a spike of their captors. So often their passports are taken away, they get violated either, you know, sexually or physically, and becoming exploited. It is an incredible tough journey that leads to long trauma, and it's very difficult to get out of such a situation. So it would need very concerted effort from law enforcement and authorities with international organizations to trace these children, then to make sure that they get out, which is a terrible crime scene to get into, so it's difficult to get these children out of these situations. And then they will need in the whole process counseling and psychosocial support, rehabilitation, reintegration. And the trauma will last for a very, very long time.
As a country, are we doing enough to protect our children? You know, they say that the measure of a society is not by how it treats its most wealthy, but rather how it treats its most vulnerable. And if we're using that as a benchmark, would you say South Africa is truly taking care of its children?
We have to do much more, and we can. I think there are many important programs that we know that deliver very important results. We have important family strengthening programs like parenting programs, men care programs, stimulating the role of men as fathers. Then there is ECBNB Safe Park programs, drop-in centers, safe schools. So we need to really implement the school safety framework, because there's a lot of violence abuse happening also in the schools. But it's really starting in the socio-ecological model at the family level, strengthen the families, your ECD centers, create a nurturing environment, make the teachers alert to identify signals of distress. And then the moment that children's rights have been violated, it's important that every actor moves very swiftly. Your social worker to the police, to the prosecutor, your forensics and the court. Within 72 hours, justice needs to be done, so that child abuse no longer gets away with it and perpetrators get caught and justice is done. And that children get adequate legal and medical aid. So the case management and referral pathways have to be much more efficient. And everybody in the community needs to provide evidence and want to be a witness so that justice can take its course. So first of all, an accelerated investment in prevention and early intervention, which is your parenting, your safe parks, your men care programs, and then a swift response the moment that children have been hurt.